Hello and welcome to Keep Right On, a Birmingham City podcast brought to you from us here at Birmingham Live. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined as ever by our Blues reporter Alex Dicken and by Ryan Deeney, our resident tactical and Blues expert. How you doing, Ryan?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. It's nice to win every week, isn't it?
It certainly is different, absolutely. And we bring you this podcast as Blues ascended to the top of League One for the first time. And if you listen to Alex Dicken, it'll be they'll never leave that position, will they, Alex?
Probably not, to be honest. No, not the way they're playing at the moment. They were excellent again. You know, from 25 minutes in on Saturday, 2-0 down. They were getting that shock that we've been promised by Peterborough, who looked quite a decent side in the opening quarter of that match. But as soon as Blues got that goal through Williamson, I think halfway through the first half, then there was never really any doubt in my mind they were going to get something from the game. I didn't expect them to turn it around so quickly in the second half, but you know, the changes at half time and the rollicking they no doubt had from Chris Davis clearly worked. Yeah,
indeed. Just to lay the table a little bit, we will talk about the Peterborough match at some length. Look at the half-time substitutions, and I was sat next to Alex in the press box. We sort of gave each other a quizzical look as to why Chris Davis had made the replacements he had. We'll talk about Bailey Peacock-Farrell. Wonder if there's a little bit of an issue with set-piece defence. Talk about the situation at the top of the league, and then look ahead to Huddersfield. Ryan, first, just overall impressions of the Peterborough performance.
I mean, same again, the first sort of 5 minutes or so, it was like we were in for a shock and just bad decisions in the first few minutes of the game, and we sort of put ourselves under this pressure, don't we? I think straight from the kick-off, Peck, it was a false start to begin with. Then when we do start, Peck gives it to Bailey, who gives it to Cochrane, who then gives it straight to their right back because him and Hansen are on the same lines. They get a corner kick, and from the corner kick, Jones ends up heading just a little bit wide, and you're thinking, okay, like, same as usual. Then they score. I mean, I know we're going to touch on Peacock-Farrell later on, but, you know, another stupid goal given away. And then we started to get a foothold in the game sort of about 10 minutes in, and then we concede again. And I think similar to sort of as Alex has just mentioned, even when we're 2-0 down, you see us get straight back on the ball and start playing and think, we're not out of this. We've still got a chance. Then we score the goal. Well, Dykes has the one headed off the line, doesn't he? And then we score the goal, and you just think, we are going to come back here, whether we win or whether we draw, but we're getting a result here. It just felt like I was in complete control after that second goal. And I went back and obviously had a look at the stats, as, you know, always do. And they've had one shot after they've scored that second goal, even when even when we're 3-2 ahead and winning the game. The closest they got to us in terms of laying a glove was a couple of set pieces that we dealt with. And I had a little look on who scored, because it gives you the touch map on there. And I think from about the 15th minute onwards, they've had about 15 touches sort of centrally towards our goal, within about 30-35 yards of goal. And we've just been totally dominant from, you know, that 15th minute onward. The goals were coming. It was a matter of time as to when. And once we got ahead, we just never looked like ever giving it up.
Yeah, it was totally self-inflicted, wasn't it? It was almost like we were giving ourselves a slightly more complicated puzzle this week, just to see if we could work out the extra hard Sudoku. Alex, do you agree with that? Do you think it was pretty much self-inflicted, and beyond that, it was all Blues?
Yeah, I don't know if you want me to go straight into the Peacock-Farrell thing now, but the first 15 minutes, I think the first two goals were up in 16, didn't they? So they've done that a couple of times against Wrexham as well. They kind of surrendered the ball quite early on and gave away a few corners, and two corners quite early in this match as well. Playing out from the back, they do seem to have teething issues at the beginning of games. As it goes on, they get stronger.
Yeah, Alex, just jump in there. You're right. And we spoke to Bielik after the game, didn't we? And he actually said it was his fault that they got themselves into that mess in that first 5 seconds, because he's supposed to go long, I think, to Hansen, but instead he squared it to Cochrane, who then, tried to play it to Hansen, who'd head off down the wing, expecting Bielik to go long to him. So yeah, you are right. It started from that moment. Yeah, sorry, go on.
That's probably also feeds into what Chris Davies was saying about the patterns not being correct and the system not working correctly in the first half and players not making the right movements. Because if Hansen makes that move and Bielik doesn't give him that ball, then all of a sudden he goes to Cochrane. Cochrane's got a completely kind of different angle of pass, and Hansen's not where Cochrane would want him. So yeah, that's a mistake straight away. And it felt like they were just. If there is time to get at Blues, it is right at the start of games. I found, you know, they do tend to start slow. They try and take a little bit of time to get into their rhythm, and it has cost them a few times. I mean, Blues have gone behind, I think now in four of their 8 League One games. Blue Stato reminded me that it's 4 on Twitter on Sunday because I'd completely forgotten the Wrexham game. But yeah, against Wrexham, Reading on the opening day, Wickham as well as Peterborough. So they do need to cut that out because eventually there'll be a team that's good enough defensively to keep them at arm's length, and maybe, you know, once they get 2 goals in front, not blow it. I think it was a good team to play against in that respect because Peterborough aren't completely tight defensively, are they? So when Blues went 2-0 down, you always sense they'd get a chance to get back in the game.
Yeah, indeed. It felt like should we do Peacock-Farrell now? I mean, it's just the holding position, or my holding position, has been, yes, he's making mistakes, which is indisputable, and it's probably, if you count the one on international break, it's probably like something like 5 mistakes in his last 7 or 8 games. My position has always been it's not costing the team points yet, and it's too big a decision to change the goalkeeper. It's too big a decision, and you risk losing more than you gain. I have to concede I'm coming away from that position a little bit, and for the first time, in my opinion, there is a real discussion, a real decision to be made now, I think, because I thought that affected the way Blues were for the next 10-15 minutes. Ryan, thoughts on Peacock-Farrell?
I think I always had that feeling sort of as the mistake happened, and maybe just after the game, where you go, we can't keep doing this, and you come away from the game and think about it, and he's made the one mistake and then probably been fine for the rest of the game. And he does seem to recover okay. Like I think he made a claim from a set piece. He just sort of moved the ball cleanly for the rest of the game. I think the difference on Saturday was that you could hear the crowd almost every time he got the ball. And I think that's a problem, because although fans are naturally going to be a little on edge because naturally, we're behind, we're all level and maybe not playing sort of as well as we have done early doors. Once the crowd start getting on somebody's back, it then creates a nervousness potentially around the team, and it's difficult for the team to play around that. And we don't know how Allsop will do when he comes in, but if Allsop comes in and doesn't make those mistakes and does clear his lines, the crowd might be a little bit more on song. I think the other side of it will be almost that it comes across a bit lackadaisical at times, the way he sort of give the ball away against Leyton Orient and the one at the weekend. But at the same time, that calmness and that composure that he sort of shows with the ball, in sort of not panicking and not worrying about whether someone's coming near him because he's just going to move the ball, sort of in the way you probably watch Ederson do at times for Man City. Not that I'm comparing Peacock-Farrell to Ederson. It probably relaxes the rest of the team as well. He just carries on moving the ball, and the rest of the team don't feel panicked and don't feel worried. They don't feel like they're out of position. They don't feel like there's a problem in possession. And it's balancing whether having that for 89 minutes and 30 seconds of a game is better than, I don't know, potentially the alternative of does Allsop maybe panic a little bit more? And I don't want to say panic, but does Allsop just clear his lines and maybe stunt us in our ability to play out from the back by feeling that he has to go longer to sort of play to the fans a little bit more? I don't know. I suppose that's the tricky balance for Davies to decide now. Is Allsop ready to come in and just do that simple passing game under pressure? And will he keep the ball, or will he try and go longer, and will he maybe not do the things that are helping us progress from the back to bait the press in order to, move further up the pitch?
Okay, we'll come on to our 11s for the Huddersfield game in a bit. So we'll all give our answers to whether we'd make a change in goal. Alex, what did Davies say, and did you agree with him, and what are your thoughts about Peacock-Farrell at the moment?
To be fair, David's acknowledged it was a mistake, which obviously it was, but he did suggest that maybe the centre-backs and the full-backs could have been in better positions to receive the pass and been out quicker. So, that's probably something we have to look back into, or they'll look back into on like videos and things and suggest what could have happened. But I think it's a simple one, isn't it? Peacock-Farrell got the ball. He had time. He had someone charging him down. In that instance, you just clear the ball, don't you? It's fairly simple. You've just got to be quicker in possession, in my opinion. And I do think Chris Davies probably shares that opinion. Maybe he's just trying to take a little bit of heat off Peacock-Farrell because he has taken a fair bit of stick, I think, in the first 8 games of his Blues career, because he's made 3 errors, maybe 4 if you include the Wrexham punch that just kind of went to Marriott and obviously led to a goal. So yeah, there is a debate to be had. There's a question mark over whether he should continue in goal, because Blues, we were led to believe, did sign 2 goalkeepers to create this live goalkeeping competition. And then if you've got one who has made 3/4 errors in the first 8 games, then the other one is perfectly entitled to think he deserves a chance in goal. So it's an interesting one. I don't necessarily think Peacock-Farrell is exceptional in possession. I've not really had that from him so far. That's my opinion. When we've been told that Blues have signed goalkeepers to play out from the back, I get that with Allsop. I think he's exceptional on the ball. I think we've seen that with Hull City previously. And when he has played for Blues, I think we've seen how composed and confident he is in the ball, how he zips it into players rather than just kind of rolls it into them. He's clearly confident in the decisions that he makes. I haven't got that from Peacock-Farrell. I've got that he plays short to Bailey and Clara. I've not really seen a great kind of deal of skill, in his passing that you don't see in many other goalkeepers. I think he's probably in the team, or has been in the team, because of his goalkeeping abilities, and that's probably why I struggle more with the error that he made against Wigan than the 2 playing out from the back errors that he's made. But it's not sustainable to have a goalkeeper that keeps making mistakes, even if you are winning games, because eventually it's going to cost you.
Yeah, indeed. I think the one on Saturday, he got his feet in a tangle, didn't he? There was sort of there was a misfire. He was trying to adjust his feet, and in that time, Ricky J. Jones was absolutely on him. And I thought overall the Peterborough press was very good for the first sort of 20 minutes, and it was a little bit like the Reading game when Blues were almost surprised that a team had come to St Andrews and had the temerity to press them. Peacock-Farrell did play a couple of what I would call risky passes into midfield to Peck, and Peck did well to sort of salvage them. In my view, Allsop is a better distributor, better with his feet. Ryan, anything to add on Peacock-Farrell before we move on?
No, I just think with Allsop, I mean, we probably haven't seen as much of him in terms of the games we've played. Obviously, he played against Walsall, didn't he? And played against Charlton, but we had much change teams for those games. And the Fulham game, although we dominated the ball, it probably wasn't sort of to the same level that we've maybe played around League One sides in terms of the way we've moved the ball out from the back and so on. So I think it's a case of, I suppose, seeing what he's like in a sort of League One game, that sort of ultra competitive kind of game where teams are coming at us from the off, and seeing how he gets on, to be fair. Obviously, he played for Rossini last year, didn't he? And they spent 90% of their time passing the ball between the goalkeeper and the centre-back. So presumably he should be absolutely fine. I do struggle with the argument that Peacock-Farrell is in goal for being a better goalkeeper when you see the mistakes he's made against Wrexham and Wigan. I think that's a tougher one to sort of discuss. I think when you see the goals that we're giving away in the Premier League at the weekend, I don't think Davis will care that much about him giving goals away, trying to play out from the back and trying to do the right things. So you can almost put those issues aside. I just think it's the nervousness around the ground that is the bigger issue, rather than perhaps the mistakes he's making.
He's not,
for what it's worth. Sorry, go on, Alex.
I was going to say, he's not, like, you speak to goalkeepers. I may have said this on the podcast before. I'm not saying he's like a shy and retiring person, but he's not an outwardly confident person, I would say, like other goalkeepers you meet are, like a John Ruddy or something who, shouts and barks at everyone in front of him. Even Neil Etheridge to a certain extent, and previous goalkeepers that Blues have had. Peacock-Farrell, it hasn't struck me as somebody who is like that in terms of a really, really big dominant personality, which is unusual in my experience of speaking to goalkeepers, because they do tend to be kind of the Okay, they tend to be really big personalities, don't they? So I don't know whether he looks a little bit nervous sometimes, and when the fans were obviously nervous when he had the ball at his feet after that mistake. There was that one where he took it and was trying to play to Clara in the right centre-back position and just basically put it out for a corner kick, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it was getting to him a little bit. I think he recovered quite well because he made a few decent contributions after that. There was a save, wasn't there, that went out for a corner that may have led to the second goal, actually. But, and then there was also a good punch and a good claim from a set piece as well. So I don't think he wilted under it, but I just don't think he dealt with it that well in the initial spell.
It always surprises me that he's 6'4".
Yeah, doesn't play that big, does he? No, I know what you mean.
No, it doesn't carry himself like a goalkeeper who's 6'4". He carries himself like someone who's probably 6 foot, 6'1" maybe, and just not as big and as dominant.
Yeah, I actually, for what it's worth, I don't think Davis will make the change.
No, I don't either.
I think he will. He's taking it on the chin publicly, hasn't he? And I think as long as he can say, Peacock-Farrell is doing what I'm asking him to do, then he'll probably stick with him. The one time he did lose it at Peacock-Farrell wasn't for the sticking the ball out for the corner when he completely missed Clara, or wasn't for the error for the goal. It was when he hoofed it long and didn't play as per instructed. So yeah, I think I'd be surprised if there's a change on Tuesday night. Second home game in a row, is that right? Was the Wrexham the last home game as well? With a set piece goal conceded. I know we are sorting through the silver linings to find the cloud here a little bit, aren't we? But is there a slight issue on set piece defence, Ryan?
I had a look at the numbers this morning, and we've conceded the second fewest shots from set-piece situations, which probably is in part to the fact that we don't give as many away as other teams.
Yeah.
We've scored as many as we've conceded from set-pieces, and I think the two we've conceded really have come more down to the fact that we haven't completed the sort of blocking actions as well as we should have. I think when you see the weekend, you kind of get reminded that, reality isn't Marvel and Thor can get beaten up. Fernandez just absolutely manhandles him, beats him, and just gets to the near post, and he's got a free header. And it's down to the blockers to make sure that we don't get situations like because I think even for the Wrexham goal, it's Cleworth who just comes absolutely flying into the back post, which probably does as much to put off Peacock-Farrell as it's O'Connell, isn't it, that he's having a bit of a scrap with on the goal line to begin with. I think Cleworth steaming in, sort of not actually being blocked properly. And we had similar issues with it last season. I think we remember the Southampton goal. I think James just loses his man and stops completing the blocking action. And it's something that's kind of hindered us, probably over the last sort of 20, 30 games that we've kind of played in league games. So it's just players switching on and doing more to make sure that these, giant defenders don't escape and allow our centre-halves to head the ball clear on the 6-yard line.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, Thor lost Fernandez on the first corner as well. He didn't come to anything, but Fernandez really had a run on Williamson in that. Alex, agree with that? You feel it's like it's individual errors rather than something structural going on there. And let's be clear, there are only two, so probably it's not even worth talking about. But just before we move on,
yeah, I think fans have kind of foreseen this problem, because after that Wrexham game, we got a few questions about the set piece issues, and we were like, oh, what issues? Because they conceded one goal, but I suppose now they've conceded two, it is more of a conversation. And it has, like Ryan said, actually, it has been an issue since maybe February last season, where they conceded probably 3 or 4 in quick succession. And then I remember, was it Mark Venus after the Millwall game, kind of bemoaning their defending of set pieces. And so, yeah, I think Jonathan Grounds actually seems to be taking a little bit of responsibility for them. Chris Davies hasn't mentioned anything on that at all, but Grounds, whenever Blues do get a set piece, is kind of the man who's getting up and kind of shouting at people alongside Davies. And obviously we know Ashley Cole did a little bit of that role, and Grounds, I suppose, has temporarily replaced him before Huddersfield came in onto the coaching staff, and he does seem to be taking a little bit of responsibility on set pieces. So that's, again, one to watch for supporters. But no, nothing to really add on what Ryan said. I think it's been a bit of a weakness for Blues for for 6 months. Different personnel now. I think they've got better personnel to deal with it now. People like Clara, Bielik obviously as well, who was there last year. Williamson probably does need to be stronger, as you said, but and Dykes was also for the first half. But I think it comes down to a lot of the time the goalkeeper, and he does need to come and take pressure off them as well sometimes.
I think some of those deliveries you find to the back post, like that one against Wrexham, if that's John Ruddy in goal, then you know he's claiming it. But that's the different type of goalkeeper we've got now, haven't we? We're not going to be in League One signing goalkeepers that are absolutely fantastic with the ball at the feet and fantastic shot stoppers and command their area. Those guys are going to be playing at a high level. So it's, I suppose, fighting your battle really. And given we've got 75% of the ball each game, you want the goalkeeper more or less that's going to help you kick the ball.
Indeed, all of which leads us on to the league situation. Blues hit the front for the first time this season. 5 points clear. Is it 7 games? It is 7 games, isn't it?
Blues have got a game in hand on a few of them, yeah.
Yeah, so Blues have opened up a 5-point gap on third place. So they are, clear blue water in terms of the automatic promotion places. That's all that matters, isn't it, Alex?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously with the start they've had, you know that they're going to build that gap straight away, and if it is 5 points, if they do win that game in hand, then that's a very, very positive start. So yeah, I mean, it's been a dream start, hasn't it, to win 6 league games in a row for the first time since 1985 as well. I was speaking to one of our colleagues earlier saying that points per game, Blues are on course to get 124 points the way they've started. I don't think that'll happen, but they're on course to go through 100, aren't they? And they're doing it in a very good style as well, which is all the more pleasing.
Just to clarify what I said earlier, they are 2 points clear of Wrexham in second and then 5 points clear of Lincoln in third. Lincoln have also only played 7 games. Ryan, comments on the league positions? You might as well stop it now, eh?
I don't want to be a Grinch or anything like that. It just feels a bit too early for me to look. I think in my head, I always want to get past these first 10 games. Obviously, the extra game's been cancelled, so it's 9 now. But I think in my head, I always want to get through these first 10 games and then look at the position and see where we are and how we move forward. Because in theory, the fixtures shouldn't be as difficult as these first 10 games have been. I think I've referenced it previously, haven't I, where the first 5 you're playing sides that have all got managers that are in place from the previous season, all beat expectations. Then these 5 games now were all against sides that were expected to be up there and challenging, at least looking for the playoffs. It hasn't quite happened for Steve Evans and Rotherham, but I think I don't want to say nervous because we look absolutely superb at the moment, but I think Huddersfield and Charlton are 2 of the sides you probably anticipate are going to finish in that top 6 come the end of the season. Let's see how we get on against these 2. See what the situation is after that, and then I think personally I'll be ready to sort of look at the table and have a little redressing of expectations and stuff like that and see where we go moving forward.
It does feel to me significant, though, that they've come into what many people were saying would be the hardest part of the season so far. The Wrexham, the Rotherham, and Saturday's game against Peterborough, as you say, the sort of the 3 pre-season or 3 of the pre-season promotion favourites or people in that promotion conversation. And Wrexham were swept aside in a display of dominance I've not seen for many a year. Rotherham away were completely handled, weren't they? Blues just went about their business and then closed it down. And yes, Peterborough was a bit more white knuckle, but that was largely self-inflicted. I think the fact we're 3/5 or half of the way through this run of really difficult games, and Blues are sweeping everyone aside. I mean, you can only but be confident, right, Alex?
Yeah. I mean, Huddersfield. I do think this week will be a really big test. I think I'm not necessarily looking at Huddersfield and expect them to come to Blues and win, but I think they could be one of the teams who I would say could cause a shock. I'm looking at that Charlton game. I think that's the most difficult game Blues have had in the opening 10 games because Charlton have been, they're not far away from Blues in the table. They've won a good chunk of their opening games. They're expecting to be in the mix. And I remember when Blues beat them at the Valley in August in the Carabao Cup, Nathan Jones, was the first of the managers to really kind of talk up Blues spending power, and they're expected to win our league, at a canter. So I think he'll have Charlton really up for that game. And, you know, there'll be more fans there this time than there were in that League Cup game. And Blues are the scalp, aren't they, this year, even for a club of Charlton's size. So that's the one I'm looking at. And, you know, fingers crossed Blues come through Huddersfield and Scale with another win. But that's probably what I'm looking at, saying that's one where I'd be really, really impressed if Blues went there and imposed their game on Charlton and came away with 3 points. And that would be a massive marker.
I think Huddersfield, sort of my own trained eye, are probably the side that are maybe best equipped physically, maybe in terms of concentration levels and stuff like that, to perhaps match us. I don't want to say match us in terms of ability to play football and all the rest of it, but I think it'll probably be the first game where certainly the first game of this run where we're not completely dominant for 80 minutes without any kind of threat coming from the opposition. I think they'll be set up, I suppose, a little bit to play as the underdog, and I think a couple of the Huddersfield fans have said the game will probably suit them more in terms of maybe being able to have a defensive shape and play sort of on the break and try and, you know, nick possession and go. And I think with Charlton, even their fans are just sort of saying the football is mind-numbingly boring. But they're direct, they're going to be uncompromising, and it is going to be one of them where we're going to have to be patient and just hope we can break them down somehow. I mean, in the cup, it was the 30-yarder, wasn't it? You know, I can't imagine they're going to give much space sort of in and around the area. They'll defend the box properly, so you're just kind of hoping that you show that little bit of quality, or when you do escape, you know, you've got that ruthlessness to make sure that you punish them.
Huddersfield look a really strange team, don't they, actually? Like, their results have been very odd. Like, they started the season with 3 wins, and now all of a sudden they've lost 4 of the last 5. You know, they got battered at home by Northampton. They lost at home to Blackpool. They've obviously lost at the weekend to Reading. But, you know, in amongst those results is a 4-0 away win at Bolton. So, you know, that suggests they can really turn it on, because Bolton are another team we're expecting to be challenging.
I'm sure Ben sent me something through this morning, obviously Blues Breakdown, where it was something to do with their XG numbers, and I think they've scored a couple from, you know, basically they're underperforming in front of goal and, you know, massively underperforming in front of their own goal. Presumably that's going to tweak at some point. Hopefully it isn't Tuesday.
Yeah, just on to, but we'll go a little bit more depth into Huddersfield in a sec. Just finishing off with the Peterborough game. Darren Ferguson speaking afterwards, he basically said the relegation has been the best thing to happen to Blues. Now, I was chatting to some member of the Blues media team about this before he said that, actually, and I was always of the viewpoint that was pretty nonsensical, that relegation could never be a good thing, and it just puts you one very, very difficult rung further down the ladder to where you're trying to get to. Has Darren Ferguson got a point? I'm starting to think that maybe he has. I'm starting to think that maybe introducing this style of football would have been difficult. It's been challenging so far, but I think it would have been extra difficult in the Championship. What do you think, Alex?
That's the biggest thing for me. I was actually saying this to someone at the training ground on Thursday last week, that I think having been able to bring Chris in this summer and then bring all these players in this summer, they're clearly designed to play Chris's style of play. It's so much more kind of, it's the perfect kind of breeding ground, isn't it, League One, I think, because they've got better players than everyone else, which, you know, every manager will fairly point out, and a bigger budget. But they've got so many good players that even if the system doesn't work, they can probably still get through and win games. It's not that important, you know, when it's not that detrimental to their overall results when they actually do make the odd mistake, like we've seen with Peacock-Farrell so far. They can still overcome those setbacks because of their quality. So I think if Chris Davies had come in this summer and Blues are a Championship side that had just finished 19th and tried to go and play this style of football, it would have been way harder, because you're playing against established Championship teams, many of whom are very comfortable in that style of football, the possession-based. Many of whom have come down from the Premier League, and it'd be so much more hard to implement it. Whereas you actually look at the Ipswich Town route now, and although you don't want it because you've got to go, you know, back to back and spend time in League One that you don't want to spend, it does work. You know, Kieran McKenna has created a system there in League One where every single player knew their role, and he was able to go up to the Championship with some players that hadn't really played higher than League One in their careers previously, and all of a sudden they're now Premier League players. You know, Sam Morsey is starting games in the Premier League for Ipswich. Wes Burns, who was playing in League One before McKenna picked him up, as he's starting games or coming off the bench in games in the Premier League for Ipswich. So I actually don't think it's a bad thing. And we've seen the summer in terms of, you know, financially, it hasn't held Blues back in any way, has it? So I think it's been a good thing for Blues to be relegated. I never thought I'd say that either, Brian.
Ryan, thoughts on that?
I mean, it's hard to argue against it, isn't it? We're living it now, and you know, we're winning every week. The football's fantastic. The crowd is. I think we've sold out every single game so far, haven't we? I think Huddersfield, they've opened up the Gilmary Cup, haven't they? And potentially that could be, if not a sellout, certainly close to a sellout. So it's just teams winning football matches brings fans back to ground, doesn't it? You know, the reason our ground has been half empty for years is, yes, the ownership stuff, but also the fact that the team has been pants for a decade. When the team are winning football matches, people come back and enjoy it. Then the fans get on board, and the players are on board even more because the fans are backing them, and it just creates this, you know, lovely mesh of everyone's on the same page, and everyone enjoys winning, don't they? So it's really hard to argue with the idea that, you know, it's been a good thing for us going down. Hopefully, you know, continues that way, and when we do go up next season, I think
he's a when. He's a when man, Brian.
I think part of the issue might have been, if we stayed in the Championship, is that so many of our signings came partway through pre-season or after the season had started. It wasn't a case of we got all these guys in before pre-season and got going straight away. These guys have come in as the window's progressed. So we'd have been in a situation now, it's sort of coming towards the end of September, where a lot of guys still would have been getting up to speed at Championship level, whereas most of the players we've signed are naturally better than the level. And it's just a case of they're getting fitter as they're playing more games. Whereas I'd imagine the Championship, it might have been a bit more of there might have been more teething issues there with regards to playing against quality opposition every week, where, you know, it's more of a level playing field.
I think I'd say on this is going down has not enabled the investment, but it means that Blues are operating within different financial rules, which has been helpful. It also means that there is more headroom in games, and heaven knows they needed a headroom after the mountain they gave themselves on Saturday. I don't think in a Championship game they go 2-0 behind, you know, in 10 minutes, and they fight back at this stage of their development to win a Championship game. Maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't feel like that they would do that. And the other thing is, and this is where Ipswich benefited from, is everyone's expecting to win football matches, aren't they? There's been a cultural shift now. You know, almost on Saturday when Bielik scored and Blues went 3-2 in front. Yes, there was excitement. You know, there's a real clamour inside in the stands, but also there was a little bit of, yeah, of course, that's what Birmingham City do now. You know, if you think of that situation in the Championship, you know, people would have been announcing national holidays and this sort of thing for a comeback from a 2-0 down in the Championship. There is an expectation of success now, and yeah, I mean this episode is starting to be the climb down episode for me. I'm rowing back on the going down was never a good thing, and I'm starting to reconsider the Peacock-Farrell thing as well. So yeah, thankfully this isn't on public record and no one can hold this over me.
How do you create a winning culture at a football club? Get relegated and make your team better. That's what I'd say.
The blueprint, absolutely. Right. This feels a bit random now. It doesn't flow brilliantly well, but just in terms of the League One players we've seen so far, Ryan, anyone stood out for you apart from Birmingham's 25 players? Any of the opposition players caught your eye?
I think three particular. I think Ben Elliott for Reading on opening day I thought was absolutely fantastic. I actually watched a bit of him against Huddersfield on Saturday, and he's just so full of energy and tenacious and looks after the ball and constantly making forward runs. I thought it was brilliant. I thought Fernandez deserves a shout for the weekend. He's just an absolute giant of a human, isn't he?
Yeah.
And I know Wrexham were really poor, but I thought Owen O'Connell was actually really good at the heart of the defence. Made a lot of interceptions, a lot of covering challenges and so on. So he stood out. I suppose Kieran Sadlier for Wickham. Obviously settled both of the goals. It's been difficult, really. I mean, there's been sort of a couple that have maybe stood out, but none that I've maybe watched and thought that'd improve our starting 11, which is you're kind of almost judging them against a slightly different level to the way we're judging our own team, which is quite a tricky thing to find. Whereas normally, we're playing the Championship, we're watching teams going, I'd love to have them in our starting 11. I can't really say I've had anybody like that so far in the in League One.
No, that's fair. Alex?
The problem is, I think that the other teams aren't having that much of the ball, so you don't really notice the players, the quality players they've got, do you? Like Brian said, I liked Sadlier at Wickham. I wouldn't say he wouldn't get in the Blues team, but he was a player that at least managed to cause Blues quite a few issues that day on very, very little service. You're going to mention Kelvin from Reading, aren't you, on the opening day, Brian?
Yeah. What's his surname? What's his surname again, Alex? I'm
not going to be pronouncing that one. I really liked him. I thought he was excellent. I thought actually their front three that day were really good and worked really well together. And I'm going to mention another player I think you're going to mention. I'm going to steal your thunder completely, but Hector Cipriano for Peterborough is probably outside the Blues midfield options the most impressive midfielder I've seen in League One this season. I think he always had a picture of what he was going to do before the ball was going to come to him in that game on Saturday and used it very, very well. So he's a player I like as well.
Yeah, although beaten at the back post by Bielik. Well, for Bielik's elbow to score the winner. But yeah, I knew I shouldn't have put my three down on the running order. Ryan, like you, I've gone for one from Reading, one from Wrexham and one from Peterborough, and it was Cipriano. I thought he managed a very difficult situation really well. And I thought he showed some leadership, and I liked the size and the physique and the sort of the age profile of him. I think, he's got a big future ahead of him. Elliot Lee for Wrexham I thought was good as well. And I'm going to have a stab at the guy that scored for Reading on opening day, Kelvin Ihip-Haptioman.
I think it's a Batcherman.
A Batcherman.
I think it's something like that.
Ryan, you could have saved me embarrassment and just done it for me. Thank you for that. Yeah. Kelvin Batchman. Apologies, Kelvin, in the very unlikely event that you're listening to this. But yeah, really impressed with his energy and mobility. And just one team name. Where's the opposition coming from then? In terms of challenging Blues for promotion, stroke title, stroke top six, whichever way you view it.
I don't think there will be direct competition.
I genuinely don't think there's going to be a team that's going to keep pace completely. I think the team I'm looking at so far, I think, is probably Charlton. Although Blackpool have started under Steve Bruce, haven't they? 4 wins.
I was going to, you stole my thunder there. Yeah, could have been
maybe. Yeah. Were they a promotion pick before the season started? I think we mentioned them in the podcast, didn't we? Blackpool could potentially do something.
Ish, yeah. I mean, Neil Critchley has had success there, hasn't he? But just not this season. So yeah, Steve Bruce is. Am I right in saying he's got second most promotions on his CV after Warnock? Is that
probably,
right?
Yeah.
Must be. Not too sure. Yeah,
it's got to be.
Certainly a track record of success. So yeah, Blackpool would have been mine, Ryan. And you don't think anybody?
I just don't see anybody winning as many games as us. I think it's going to be a good race for second place. Do you know what? I'm really struggling with this balance of trying to be as honest as I can and obviously naturally confident at the same time. You just sound arrogant with everything you say, don't you?
Ryan is one of these fans that the other fans in League One really hate on Messi because he's just so arrogant that Blues are going to win the league.
It's so difficult to find the balance between sort of confidence and arrogance and sort of just you say something like I think we're going to win the league and I think we're going to comfortably win the league, and it just sounds like you're just writing off every other team, doesn't it?
Right? Do you reckon Blues will go unbeaten the entire season?
I was just going to ask you this. Ask this. I mean, I'm confident we're not going to go unbeaten for the season, but do either of you kind of want the defeat to happen just so it's done, it's out of the way, and we just move forward? Because I feel like the longer this goes on, every single game's going to be, is that unbeaten run going to go? I mean, at this point, is the winning run going to end? And it's a part of me almost thinks, do we just get the defeat out the way and it's done? We've got the one there, and we just move on and just carry on with the rest of the season.
I'm happy for the defeat to come in game 44, to be honest with you. That's absolutely fine by me.
Yeah, I don't think we'll start talking about can Blues go this season unbeaten maybe like properly until like 15 to 20 games, and if it's still a thing then, because teams have gone like 10, 12 games unbeaten at the start of the season, haven't they? But no one's really got to like 20 without it being a conversation.
I do wonder whether it becomes, obviously I follow the National League, and Chesterfield last season had 81 points after 30 games. And pretty much from that point, like, they'd turned the title up, they were, 15, 20 points ahead of everyone else, and they just kind of slacked off from there.
Yeah.
Like, quality players for the level, but they all just kind of, they're in party mode. I think they eventually won the title with about 6 or 7 games to go, and pretty much lost every game from there, lost the home unbeaten record, and just sort of, like, I mean, even the fans were at the point where they're going, this is kind of disgraceful now. But they'd won the league and won it at a canter, so I wonder... It's where I get nervous about the points record stuff. Do we reach a point where, essentially we just reach a point of the season where we're so far ahead, if it sort of happens like that, where we do just start to slack off? David starts making a few changes here and there to give people game time. Like, how does it unfold at the end of the season?
I know, but do you think if Blues are, on 90 points with another 20 points to play for, the man who jumps around the touchline every week is gonna let them slack off? There's absolutely no chance he lets them slack off. He's just not got it in him. No way.
It's just whether you start making those silly errors, don't you? Like, the players just stop pressing for the ball at a certain point because they're just switching off because you haven't got that same intensity in the game. And it's whether we just start letting silly little things happen where we're still playing football and we're still doing our stuff, but whether we just start to let silly things happen during games. And that's where I sort of get nervous about sort of saying, yeah, we're going to win the league, we're going to break the points record, we're going to go unbeaten, and things may sort of slide towards the end of this. I mean, it might not, but that's kind of where my head goes. That nervousness of sort of saying it out loud, of going, we're going to break the points record and we're going to do this and that.
Chris Davies does talk about the Celtic 69 game domestic unbeaten run a little bit, so he's obviously seen what it's like to go that long unbeaten. So I think if you've lived that, you don't think it's impossible, do you? So I'm sure he won't admit it, but in the back of his mind, he will be thinking, maybe we could go the entire season unbeaten with this squad of players that we have. Yeah,
listen, there's no point pretending to be coy, is there? It doesn't do any of us any favours. Blues have got the best team in squad in the division by a very long way. Therefore, they should win it. Therefore, anything other than first is probably underachievement. But yeah, that's not to say I don't think Blues will go unbeaten. I absolutely don't.
No, I don't, to be fair.
I think in terms that, talking about that sort of ruthlessness as and when we reach the end of the season in that sort of position, I think his 2 subs the weekend kind of showed where his mind's at, doesn't it? Where it's not that anyone's playing poorly, it's just that he knows that if he can freshen things up and give us that little bit of extra edge and a slightly different profile of player, then, you're going to attack teams and hurt teams. And that's probably where his mind will go as the season goes on. If someone isn't quite at it or isn't quite having the impact on the game, then he knows that someone else is sat there and they're going to do it. Yeah,
indeed. Right, gentlemen, we've collected all the rope we need to hang ourselves, and I'm just off to order an industrial amount of humble pie just in case we need it later. But yeah, let's move this on. Let's move to the Huddersfield game next on Tuesday night. Alex, any changes? Would you make any changes?
I wanted to quickly speak about XG because Ryan brought it up early, didn't he? And he mentioned that the Huddersfield are the team that are underperforming their XG so far. And if you look at their XG, it's the highest in the league, 16.09. So by some distance, really. Next is Blackpool with 13.81. Blues have actually only got 11.06, but Blues have scored 15 goals against that. So they're clearly good finishers. So Blues have almost got +4 XG difference, whereas Huddersfield have got -4 XG difference. So
I've got the stat sent through, and it's from the last 3 games, and they've lost the 3 games with an aggregate score of 2 goals scored and 7 conceded. But their XG has actually been 6.4, and their XG against has been 2.3. So clearly, I mean, obviously it's only a short, small size of data, so you can't really look too deep into it. But at the same time, you'd imagine there might be a bit of a comeback from that at some point.
They need a clinical finish like Alfie May in their attack, don't they? Yeah.
The Alfie May derby, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It'd be interesting whether Alfie May plays, to be honest.
I was going to say, I think it's hilarious that he's potentially going to be sat on our bench for the game.
It's hilarious.
But potentially going to have similar with Mark Leonard going back to Northampton, aren't we? The people can't believe that he's still in League One and he's getting 2 or 3 minutes at the end of each game just to give Peck and Iwata a rest. It's frightening, isn't it?
Just onto Huddersfield. Michael Duff did say at the weekend, obviously they lost 2-1 away to Reading, that they dominated that game, and Michael Duff came off saying basically we have to stop shooting ourselves in the foot. They seem to have done that quite a lot, and he was saying that only Blackpool are the ones to have actually played them off the park this season, and they've been in and every other game and potentially should have won most of the games as well. Sorry, Alex.
No, I was going to say, to answer your initial question on like team news, I think it's probably just going to be the same again. I know Peck came off at the end, but Chris Davies just suggested that was a bit of cramp. So I don't think there'll be any changes in terms of the squad. I think you might see a couple of changes in the 11. Are you going on to 11s afterwards? I think the players probably coming into contention. Maybe Samstead at right back, because Taylor Gardner-Hickman's having to get through a lot of work. So I think maybe for this game with Charlton at the weekend, maybe Samstead could come in. That would be his first league start. And in midfield, I think Leonard might get a game in this one. I think it's probably more likely to replace Iwata, because I think that's more like than replacing Peck for Leonard, to be honest. Yeah. I didn't like the Iwata-Leonard dynamic in that Walsall game.
No, I thought Iwata, not to say he had his worst game for Blues, but I thought there were a couple of moments where he looked a little bit heavy-footed, and I think Peterborough felt they could press Iwata more than they could press Peck, and they seemed to get more joy out of that.
Yeah, you know what though, Brian? Sorry to interrupt it. I was looking at the stats of those two on Saturday night, and Iwata had 96% pass completion again.
Right. Okay.
So God knows what we were watching.
Do you not think though? He gave the ball away at the very end, didn't he? And needed Peck to bail him out.
I
just felt it. And he played a bizarre square pass in his own box when just when Peterborough was sort of putting their foot to the gas a little bit. Maybe he made 2 mistakes in that game, and those are the 2 I remember, and therefore he didn't have a good game. But it felt like Iwata was more of a struggle, I would say, just about. So I don't think, just on the goalkeeper thing, I don't think he will, and I'm changed the goalkeeper. And I'm still just about got one toe in the that's right, don't change the goalkeeper camp yet.
Yeah, I don't think he'll change the goalkeeper either. I'm not sure whether I'm still in the camp that you're in, but I don't think he will change the goalkeeper. I don't think he'll make many changes, maybe a couple. Alfie May is going to want to come back in, isn't he? Scott Wright and Keshi Anderson have done themselves no harm with the way they played second half, and Emil Hansen clearly did something that Chris Davies didn't like, because I thought he was the best Blues player in that first half against Peterborough.
It was so refreshing to see him go on the outside of his man and get a left foot cross in, and Villanson score at the near post. That again, maybe it's me being in an old footballing Luddite, like the wingers to go outside the man once or twice, just to keep the fullback honest.
Well, he did it for Dykes as well, didn't he? And that was a clear off the line effort. So could have had 2 assists. Are we thinking Hansen loses place for Anderson?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And I don't know who Wright would come in for. I don't think Wright will start. I think if he does take Dykes out the 11, I think May's going to come back in.
Ryan, what did you make of the substitutions at half time? Just for those who didn't pick up on them, Emil Hansen, who we've just said was arguably Blues' best player on Saturday, was off, replaced by Scott Wright and Lyndon Dykes, who'd done okay in a team that wasn't playing brilliantly well and missed a chance, was replaced by Keshi Anderson, wasn't he? Yeah. And then there was a change in shape, wasn't there?
To be fair, I don't even think it was a change in shape. I just think it was a change of personnel in positions. Thor moved more towards that sort of central left position, Anderson out wide. Stansfield replaced Dykes as the focal point, and Wright kind of had that inside right position, doesn't he? Get so confused saying right and right. So I don't think the the formation change as such. I just think there was more of a directness about Wright and Anderson that maybe there was in the first half. So when Anderson and Wright were picking the ball up, they were running at people and trying to squeeze those forward passes in and trying to find sort of Stansfield, who was maybe trying to run the defence a little bit longer than maybe Dykes, who was, coming to feet or maybe showing through his chest and so on. So I don't think it was a change of shape, just more a change of personnel in each of the forward roles, which worked out pretty well. Obviously, after we scored the second straight away, I think Wright set up 2 chances and had one himself, didn't there?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think otherwise, it was just I think I think he said it himself after the game, didn't he, in his post-match, that it was more just about, it wasn't necessarily that Hansen and Dykes were doing anything wrong as such. He just wanted to freshen things up and give the team a bit more of an edge, which, fortunately on the day worked.
Would you make any changes?
I think the only one, whether Anderson replaces Hansen, that's kind of up in the air. I'm just thinking they play a back 3, and the way it seems to work is when we do play that back 3, Hansen has a tendency to follow the wing back. So it wouldn't surprise me if Hansen stays in so he can sort of do that running forward and back. And then it's sort of the other 3, so Stansfield, Dykes and Thor, as it would be, are the ones closing the back throw. And it wouldn't surprise me if maybe May comes in so he can try and lead that press out to the, I think, is it Pearson who's their right-sided centre-back? So you've got May, Stansfield and Williamson closing down a back 3 that aren't particularly comfortable with. They get by, but they're not entirely comfortable with the ball. So I think if you've got those 3 chasing down, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe May comes in just for that press to basically jump off Hogg and go to, and do that extra running. So that's maybe the change I'd think of, more from a tactical point of view and a legs point of view rather than anybody doing anything wrong. Yeah,
indeed. Just probably worth saying that Huddersfield they're playing without Michael Hellick at the moment. He's had a hamstring injury. He scored bucket loads of set piece goals for them last season, and also I think their goalkeeper Lee Nichols pulled out in the warm up before Reading as well. So they've got a youngster in goal potentially, if that proves to be anything beyond a minor mishap. Chaps, anything else?
No.
No,
probably just obviously Davis being suspended, which is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, is that going to have a material effect? We've seen how animated he is on the touchline, and it will be very interesting to see whether the players need that animation or whether they can self-moderate without Teacher on the sideline.
Might enjoy a little break, to be fair. A break from being shouted at.
Do you get the sense he might send Petty out to maybe be on the front foot on the touchline and kind of play the bad guy, or do you think we're just going to have, I suppose, a little bit like with Venus and Cole, where Venus and Cole were just kind of stood there having a bit of a chat during the game and maybe keeping a watchful eye rather than, being sort of on the front foot, if you like, on the touchline and barking orders out?
Go on, Alex, sorry.
No, I don't think they're going to be able to replace his energy. Whoever they send out, I don't think you're going to get someone to do what Chris Davies does on the touchline. Whether it's Petty, Huddleston, Jonathan Grounds, Mike Taylor, whoever's there, I don't think they're going to do what he does.
Yeah, Grounds certainly wasn't that front-footed on the pitch, was it?
No, you can't be asking coaches to be someone they're not. They have to be authentic to their personalities, don't they? And I just think the responsibility will be on the players to, as I say, motivate themselves and to make the corrections as well. Wherever Davis is sitting, whoever sat next to him is probably going to get in for a few bruises, aren't they? But there will undoubtedly be a communication from him down to the touchline, and you might see players getting thirsty or going down injured just so they can get messages on. From Davis.
That might be another reason May starts, to be fair, because obviously he clearly sees him as a leader, doesn't he? And the work rate he gets through, I wonder if he may start him just on account of having that extra, I don't know, voice and that sort of energy on the pitch to kind of take away from what we're losing with Davis, maybe. I mean, maybe I'm stretching a bit there, but I do wonder if that's a possibility too.
I wonder where he'll sit. I wonder where he'll sit. I think John Hughes, I remember a couple of years ago, ended up sitting in the press box behind me. Tony Mowbray sat, I think, at the front of the box in front of the press bench. I hope Chris Davies isn't behind me. It wouldn't be easy for me to concentrate with him shouting in my ear.
Brilliant. Ryan, thank you very much for your time. Great to hear from you again. Alex, thank you for your time. Not bad to hear from you again. Thank you all for listening. And it's on to Huddersfield, and a keep right on from both of us. All three of us, in fact.